Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today we are diving straight into a massive transformation that is reshaping the global economy right under our noses. For the better part of the last decade, if you asked anyone about African technology, they would almost certainly point to a single, albeit revolutionary, success story: mobile money platforms like M-Pesa. It was a narrative of basic digital financial inclusion, but today, as we navigate through 2026, that narrative is completely obsolete. Africa is no longer just a testing ground for basic apps. Driven by a massive demographic dividend where over 60% of the population is under the age of 25, alongside rapid urbanization and an unstoppable wave of entrepreneurial ambition, the continent is leapfrogging legacy infrastructure directly into the era of artificial intelligence and DeepTech. The digital renaissance happening across Africa right now is not a monolith. It is a highly localized, fiercely innovative and dynamically funded web of tech hubs, accelerators, venture capital networks, and government policy frameworks. We are talking about everything from the geothermal-powered data centers of Kenya's Silicon Savannah to the bustling, hyper-creative streets of Yaba in Lagos, and from the sophisticated financial corridors of Cape Town to the emerging AI lab of Kigali, Rwanda. Africa's tech ecosystem is maturing at an unprecedented pace, and today we are going to unpack the anatomy of this tech acceleration, the tidal wave of AI adoption reshaping legacy industries, the realities of the venture capital landscape, the crucial role of government policies, and the challenges founders must navigate in a tightening global market. Let us start by taking a macro view of the capital fueling this innovation. To understand the scale of digital innovation in Africa, you have to look at the money. After a period of global economic turbulence, rising interest rates, and a worldwide venture capital winter that heavily squeezed emerging markets between 2023 and 2024, African tech has demonstrated remarkable resilience and structural maturity. According to the Partech Africa Tech VC report, total investment in the continent's startup ecosystem reached an impressive $4.1 billion in 2025. That is a 25% jump from the previous year, and the strongest funding level since 2022, but the headline numbers tell only half the story. The composition of this capital has undergone a radical, fundamental transformation. Equity funding, which is the traditional cornerstone of venture capital, grew modestly by 8% to $2.4 billion across 462 deals, but the explosive growth came from an entirely different asset class: venture debt. African tech startups raised a record $1.64 billion in debt financing in 2025, a massive 63% increase from the year before. Debt now accounts for 41% of total capital deployed, up from a mere 17% in 2019. This shift is absolutely monumental. It signifies that African tech companies are maturing past the early-stage, cash-burning phases. Companies utilizing debt financing are those with predictable revenue streams, solid unit economics, and tangible cash flows. It is a stark contrast to the growth-at-all-costs mentality that dominated the early 2020s. Capital distribution remains heavily concentrated in what the industry affectionately calls the Big Four: Kenya, South Africa, Egypt, and Nigeria. Together, these powerhouses captured 72% of total funding in 2025. Kenya actually led the continent, pulling in $1.04 billion, which is a staggering 72% year-over-year jump, heavily fueled by massive debt rounds for infrastructure and green energy projects. South Africa maintained its dominance in equity funding and deal volume, successfully leveraging its highly advanced financial markets. Egypt continued to attract capital, with its strategic position bridging the Middle East and North Africa. Meanwhile, Nigeria, despite experiencing a recalibration in deal sizes, maintained its status as the absolute volume leader for consumer tech and fintech. Yet, the ecosystem is democratizing fast. Francophone Africa is rising rapidly, capturing 68% of equity outside the main hubs. Countries like Senegal, Morocco, and Rwanda each surpassed the $50 million funding mark in 2025, proving that investors are finally looking beyond the traditional giants for untapped potential. One of the most encouraging trends heading into 2026 is the surge of local African investors. According to the African Private Capital Association, local funds were the most active players in the market for the second consecutive year. With 188 African investors backing companies on the continent, the reliance on fickle foreign capital is rapidly waning. Firms like Launch Africa Ventures in Mauritius, All On in Nigeria, and S-Squared Investments in South Africa are consistently leading seed and Series A rounds. This local capital provides a critical buffer against global macroeconomic shocks. African family offices, local banks, and pension funds are filling the gaps left by retreating international tourists, making the ecosystem more self-reliant and intimately tied to local socioeconomic realities. Now, let us pivot to the technology itself. If mobile money defined the 2010s, artificial intelligence is undeniably the architect of the 2020s in Africa. However, AI in Africa is not about generating deepfakes or writing poetry via chatbots. It is about absolute survival, extreme efficiency, and solving deeply rooted infrastructural deficits. Startups are boldly and responsibly applying AI to tackle critical challenges in healthcare, agriculture, financial inclusion, and logistics. With over 400 AI-focused companies on the continent as of recent data, AI adoption is transitioning from a tech buzzword to a fundamental operational layer. A Microsoft AI report highlights that South Africa currently leads the continent with a 21.1% AI adoption rate, followed by Egypt at 13.4%, Morocco at 10.9%, and Nigeria at 9.3%. The economic stakes here are astronomical. Projections suggest that AI could add $2.9 trillion to the global economy, and Nigeria alone is specifically targeting 43% of Africa's projected $136 billion in AI-driven productivity gains by 2030. Let us look at how this is playing out in specific sectors, starting with agriculture. Agriculture employs over 60% of sub-Saharan Africa's workforce, but contributes disproportionately low yields due to a heavy reliance on rain-fed farming, a severe lack of data, and high climate change vulnerabilities. AI is actively flipping this narrative. Agritech startups in Nigeria and Kenya have seen rapid growth by connecting farmers directly to markets and reducing post-harvest losses by up to 20%. Innovators are bringing precision agriculture to smallholder farmers. Startups like Shamba Records in Kenya are utilizing AI-powered platforms to empower over 50,000 farmers with smart credit, direct market access, and climate-resilient data. In Rwanda, Smartel Agritech equips farmers with solar-powered AI-driven devices that detect crop pests and diseases early, sending automated SMS alerts to basic feature phones. This is a brilliant, highly effective marriage of high-tech algorithms and low-tech delivery mechanisms. Similarly, Senegal's TOLBI leverages AI and satellite imagery to provide precise crop yield forecasts, allowing governments and cooperatives to plan for food security proactively. By analyzing localized weather patterns, soil pH levels, and historical crop data, African AI models are moving farmers from reactive subsistence farming to proactive, commercial-grade agriculture. Moving over to healthcare, the impact of AI is equally profound. Africa suffers from a severe shortage of medical professionals. The World Health Organization notes that Africa carries 25% of the global disease burden, but has only 3% of the world's health workers. AI-powered health tech is stepping into this massive void. Nigerian startup Miltura utilizes AI to power a digital health platform that enables remote care, diagnostic test access, and seamless health data management, specifically designed for low-bandwidth environments. In Ethiopia, Yene Health is streamlining access to affordable medications and maternal healthcare services through a highly optimized AI platform. South Africa's rapid human AI is drastically cutting software development time for healthcare providers, turning design thinking ideas into deployable code in days rather than months. These platforms use machine learning algorithms to triage patients, analyze medical imagery like X-rays and ultrasounds with expert-level accuracy, and predict disease outbreaks by analyzing regional mobility and symptom data. The ultimate result is a democratization of world-class medical diagnostics, made accessible via a smartphone in a remote village. Then there is fintech, which remains the undisputed heavyweight champion of African tech, attracting nearly $1.5 billion in funding in 2025 alone. However, the exact nature of fintech is evolving. The first wave was entirely about digitizing cash and moving it from point A to point B. The current wave is entirely about what you can do with the massive amounts of data generated by those transactions. Enter enterprise AI. Startups like Nigeria's Pastel are delivering enterprise-grade AI services, including complex fraud detection and anti-money laundering tools tailored specifically for African financial institutions. In a continent where identity verification has historically been a massive stumbling block for credit access, AI-driven alternative credit scoring is nothing short of revolutionary. Startups are utilizing machine learning to analyze mobile money usage, utility payments, and even smartphone behavioral data to build highly accurate credit profiles for the unbanked. Furthermore, cross-border payments are being hyper-optimized. With the operationalization of the African Continental Free Trade Area, borderless commerce is a massive priority. Fintechs like LemFi, which raised an astounding $53 million in January 2025, are using AI to navigate complex, multi-currency regulatory environments. This allows a trader in Lagos to seamlessly pay a supplier in Abidjan with just a 0.5% fee. AI algorithms dynamically route these payments through the cheapest and most efficient liquidity corridors, completely bypassing the traditional, sluggish correspondent banking system. We are also seeing AI smooth out the deep friction in Africa's highly fragmented supply chains and logistics. Startups like Apex Loads in Kenya provide software-as-a-service solutions for freight stakeholders, using AI to match cargo with vetted logistics partners efficiently. Middleman in Nigeria utilizes AI for secure import payments and procurement, primarily bridging the complex, massive trade routes between Africa and China. Moreover, regulatory compliance, which is a notorious headache for scaling businesses across Africa's 54 distinct legal frameworks, is finally being automated. Ghana's Regulon has developed an AI-powered compliance and onboarding platform explicitly designed to simplify regulatory processes for businesses expanding across Africa and the EMEA region, dramatically reducing the time it takes to enter new markets. The maturation of these startups is not happening in a vacuum. It is being meticulously cultivated by a robust network of over 600 active tech hubs, incubators, and corporate accelerators. These institutions provide the vital scaffolding, including co-working spaces, cloud credits, mentorship, and invaluable investor access that transforms a raw idea into a highly scalable enterprise. Global technology behemoths have completely recognized that the next billion digital users will absolutely come from Africa, and they are investing heavily in the ecosystem's foundational layers. A prime example is the Google for Startups Accelerator Africa. In its 2025 cohort, Google doubled down on AI, selecting 15 outstanding startups from countries spanning South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, Rwanda, Ghana, and Senegal. These programs offer critical non-equity support, providing founders with direct, unparalleled access to Google's AI and machine learning engineers, cloud architecture, and global investor networks. Beyond corporate accelerators, global intergovernmental initiatives are aggressively stepping up. The AI Hub for Sustainable Development Co-Design, which is an initiative co-led by the Italian G7 presidency and the United Nations Development Programme, recently launched a startup acceleration pilot focusing exclusively on African AI. This program intelligently targets the three critical bottlenecks of AI development in Africa: data, compute, and talent pipelines. By focusing on solutions that put sustainability exactly at the center, the program aims to ensure that AI development does not become an extractive industry, but rather one that directly and measurably benefits local communities. Funding mechanisms are also vastly diversifying. Startups now have access to a rich tapestry of financial instruments, from non-equity grants provided by impact investors like the MasterCard Foundation and various climate resilience funds, to early-stage equity from specialized venture studios. This beautifully layered funding ecosystem ensures that founders building deep, structural innovations, which often require much longer gestation periods than simple consumer apps, have the financial runway they need to succeed. Innovation often outpaces regulation, but African governments are acutely aware that to harness the immense economic windfall of AI, they must build cohesive, ethical, and forward-thinking regulatory frameworks. As of late 2025, 16 out of 54 African countries have officially launched national AI strategies, with countries like Kenya, Rwanda, Ghana, and Senegal clearly leading the charge. The narrative is decisively shifting from Africa being a passive consumer of global technology to an active, powerful architect of its digital future. Look at Rwanda. Rwanda is rapidly positioning itself as the continent's premier tech sandbox. Through the Rwanda Information Society Authority, the country has launched a comprehensive national AI policy focusing on 6 critical sectors: agriculture, public administration, health, education, energy, and financial services. Rwanda's approach is deeply tied to digital governance. They are actively developing frameworks to ensure AI systems are transparent, secure, and fully aligned with human rights. By investing heavily in public sector applications, such as smart urban mobility and advanced health diagnostics, Kigali is conclusively proving that government can be a prime consumer and catalyst for AI innovation. Then we have Kenya, widely recognized as the Silicon Savannah. Kenya is actively leveraging its status as a green energy powerhouse to attract massive AI infrastructure. With massive investments in geothermal-powered data centers, Kenya is directly addressing one of AI's biggest global bottlenecks: the immense energy requirement for training large language models. The Kenyan government's task force on the National AI and Robotics Strategy is focusing heavily on data-driven innovation in agriculture and logistics. With over 600,000 individuals already trained in fundamental AI skills, Kenya's adoption rate is projected to climb steadily, fully supported by progressive reforms in data protection. Nigeria, the continent's most populous nation and largest economy, approaches AI entirely through the lens of sheer scale and productivity. The Federal Ministry of Communication, Innovation, and Digital Economy has taken a highly inclusive approach, actively co-creating its national artificial intelligence strategy with a global network of Nigerian researchers and tech founders. The draft policy firmly prioritizes skills training, local language model development, and massive cloud infrastructure rollouts. Despite ongoing systemic challenges like electricity access, Nigeria's explicit goal to capture a massive slice of the $136 billion AI productivity pie by 2030 underscores the aggressive, unstoppable ambition of its ecosystem. Meanwhile, Ghana has unveiled its national AI strategy alongside an emerging technologies bill aimed at harmonizing data governance, cybersecurity, and AI ethics. By strictly integrating AI curricula into secondary and tertiary education, Ghana is proactively combating the digital skills gap before it widens. South Africa, which currently boasts the highest AI adoption rate on the continent at 21.1%, is intensely leveraging its highly developed corporate sector and robust digital infrastructure. While it has not yet passed specific, binding AI laws, comprehensive 2024 discussion documents clearly outline a stakeholder-driven approach to regulation, ensuring that vital innovation is not stifled by premature bureaucratic red tape. However, despite the soaring funding numbers and incredible policy advancements, the African digital ecosystem is not without its harsh, sobering realities. The record $4.1 billion raised in 2025 must absolutely be contextualized within a broader global shift towards strict financial discipline. The easy money era of 2021, where startups could easily raise multi-million-dollar seed rounds on the back of a slick pitch deck and a highly charismatic founder, is definitively permanently over. The market in 2025 and moving into 2026 has shown a drastically reduced tolerance for poor corporate governance, unsustainable unit economics, and growth without clear profitability. This severe tightening was laid bare by the highly publicized collapse of several high-profile startups. Startups that relied heavily on continuous venture capital injections to artificially subsidize customer acquisition found themselves stranded when the music inevitably stopped. For instance, companies like Medsaf in Nigeria shut down after failing to close an acquisition purely due to a lack of operational runway. Kenya's buy now pay later firm Lipa Later officially entered administration when frustrated investors point-blank refused to fund further operational losses. South Africa's Bankso faced a total collapse following massive regulatory penalties. These failures, while incredibly painful for those involved, are actually indicative of a healthy, maturing ecosystem. Investors are absolutely no longer willing to rescue distressed companies that completely lack a clear path to financial sustainability. Acquisitions are no longer a guaranteed safety net for failing startups. buyers are enforcing rigorous, uncompromising due diligence, and industry trust has become incredibly fragile. Furthermore, serious foundational challenges remain. Africa currently hosts less than 1% of the world's data center capacity. This staggering statistic makes cloud computing and AI model training prohibitively expensive for local startups, who are often forced to rely on expensive servers in Europe or the US. Add to this the frustrating reality that over 80% of sub-Saharan Africa still heavily struggles with reliable electricity access, and the brutal physical constraints on digital innovation become crystal clear. Then there is the persistent issue of talent. While Africa produces brilliant, world-class engineers, there is a continuous and damaging brain drain to the global north, where tech salaries are exponentially higher. To aggressively counter this, organizations and startups are investing heavily in local talent pipelines. Incredible communities like DataProfit, Zindi, and InstaDeep are actively fostering a new generation of data scientists entirely capable of building world-class, globally competitive algorithms right from the continent. By democratizing access to high-level tech education through platforms like ALX and Andela, the ecosystem is desperately attempting to build a self-sustaining talent engine that views Africa not as a mere stepping stone, but as the final, ultimate destination for lucrative deep tech careers. A critical accelerant for the 2026 ecosystem is the powerful convergence of digital public infrastructure and the African Continental Free Trade Area. Digital public infrastructure, comprising digital identity systems, interoperable payment rails, and secure data exchange platforms, massively reduces the friction of doing business. As governments rapidly roll out robust national digital IDs, startups can seamlessly execute Know Your Customer protocols for new users, dramatically and permanently lowering customer acquisition costs. The African Continental Free Trade Area, explicitly aimed at creating a single, unified market for goods and services across 1.3 billion people, is the ultimate catalyst for tech scaling. Historically, an African startup attempting to scale from Nigeria to Kenya had to painfully build entirely new infrastructure, navigate the complex rules of a new central bank, and integrate with completely new local telcos. Today, Pan-African fintechs and logistics platforms are beautifully utilizing the regulatory harmonization brought by the free trade area to scale seamlessly and aggressively. The newfound ability to move capital, physical goods, and digital services across borders with minimal friction is rapidly transforming local champions into dominant Pan-African titans. As we look ahead toward the end of the decade, the trajectory of Africa's digital innovation ecosystem points toward monumental, unprecedented economic integration. The projected exponential growth is backed by irreversible, powerful market fundamentals. By 2050, Africa will be home to a full third of the world's young people, and its digital economy is conservatively estimated to reach an astounding $712 billion. The tough startups that survive this current period of intense consolidation will be battle-tested, highly financially disciplined, and deeply embedded in the continent's critical physical and digital infrastructure. They will not be building the Uber of Africa or the Stripe of Africa. They will be building entirely novel, groundbreaking business models explicitly tailored to the unique economic realities of the Global South. Moreover, African innovation is increasingly undeniably achieving global relevance. Highly efficient tech products built for the rugged, low-bandwidth, and highly fragmented realities of African markets are proving incredibly adaptable and fiercely competitive in other fast-growing emerging markets across Latin America and Southeast Asia. The continent is no longer just a passive testing ground, it is a premium, highly sought-after source of durable, globally competitive innovation. The ecosystem is finally transitioning from a game of sheer volume to a game of immense value. It is currently characterized by record mergers and acquisitions activity, where stronger, better-managed companies actively absorb the weak, creating massively consolidated powerhouses completely capable of competing on a global scale. With industry layoffs finally stabilizing and brutal operational efficiency becoming the absolute new mantra, African tech has undoubtedly found its sustainable footing. The acceleration of digital innovation and AI in Africa is absolutely not a fleeting trend. It is a profound structural revolution. It is being powerfully driven by debt-ready, fully mature startups, a surging, highly intelligent class of local venture capitalists, forward-thinking government policies, and a relentless, unstoppable demographic engine. The severe challenges of physical infrastructure and complex governance remain incredibly real, but they are no longer viewed as insurmountable barriers. Instead, they are the very friction points that brilliant African entrepreneurs are actively turning into multi-billion-dollar opportunities. As the physical and digital infrastructure of the continent continues to fuse and evolve, the African digital ecosystem stands completely ready to not only participate in the global digital economy, but to actively, permanently redefine its future. Thank you for listening to Fun Facts Online.